I'm Alex Lawson, filling in for Richard RJ Eskow, and I'm joined by phone right now with a great friend of the program, John Bowzer Bauman, the president of Social Security Works PAC. John, how are you?
Yes, I'm the president. I'm so excited. Do I have to give a 25-minute speech now about how great I am?
In song, yes.
That's what the presidents seem to do. Well, that was yesterday. It's ancient history by now.
And you have to use both hands to take a sip of water, too, out of a tiny water bottle.
I have my bottle of water right here, right now. I'm sorry you can't see it because I would show you how it's done.
With one hand.
Yeah, I can do it with one hand. I'm so great as president that I can do it with one hand, and in fact with either hand. And I could hold the phone in either hand, and I can give you 35 minutes on that. But probably we should talk about the Trump tax scam instead.
I think so. I think that's the issue. Right now, on Thursday, basically at this exact moment, the House is moving to vote on the Trump's tax scam. It's just a full-scale looting of working Americans in order to give that money to their criminal friends on Wall Street so they can hide it in whatever bank account Wilbur Ross also hides his money in the Bahamas. You've been focusing...
No problem. But Alex, how awesome was the picture of Steve Mnuchin and his lovely third wife yesterday with the money? With
the money, yeah. If you actually put it up right next to the cover or the famous screenshot from Dr. No, it's really apparent that what we've got is a cabinet filled with Bond villains who don't who don't even try to hide that.
Right, you're talking about people hiding, hiding things within the tax bill. There is no hiding. This is completely out in the open. This is just the biggest con job in the history of con jobs.
It is. It's just reaching into our pocket and stealing our money, destroying Medicaid, raiding Medicare, in an upward redistribution of wealth to the billionaires. I know you've been doing a lot of work in California because it also really hits big blue states. The House one does. So California Republicans are going to be taking a vote that just really impacts their constituents directly. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because these people out here in California, they didn't vote for you-know-who. So consequently, they have to be punished, as do New Yorkers and Jerseyites and, all people in relatively blue states should be punished for that horrible vote that they might have taken in November of 2016. However, this has ramifications for instance, the 14 Republican congressmen here in the state of California, who I must say have behaved really poorly during this tax scam, and one way or another, they're going to pay for it. When it came up for the budget, we don't know how they're all going to vote today. It seems like a couple of them might defect, but from the party line. But most of them are just going to go right along with this program and consequently purposely hurt their own constituents in favor of their own party. We've been talking about this quite a bit, you and I and everyone else, that, country above party. This is a situation in which, obviously we've been living party above country for a year now, but this is a situation in which literally Congress members in California are, for the most part, putting their party above their own constituents. And boy, they're going to pay for it one way or another.
I think so. I really think it's so. I mean, the numbers, I've seen the approval on this tax bill at 25%, which is incredibly low for a tax bill. Because it's not a tax bill, and I think the people are wise to that this is just a reaching into our pockets and stealing our money bill. But I think they've got the numbers in the House. By the time all of our viewers and listeners are listening, that's going to be settled. If they don't, that means they've lost 22, and, that's possible. but it's likely that it will advance out of the House. And I want to preface this next part in saying this process is incredibly complex and confusing on purpose. It's designed this way so that it's hard to follow. So I'm going to just preface it with that. But the bill...
But Alex, let's just say they wouldn't have the numbers in the House. I mean, at this juncture, let's just say, let's stipulate that they wouldn't have the numbers in the House if, for instance, all 14 Republican congressmen in California voted the interests of their own constituents. They wouldn't have those numbers. So, yeah, we are probably going to move on to the next phase, which you're about to describe. But really, truly understand that these are people who are putting a lot of the interests of the super wealthy, of Wall Street, of people with estates over $11 million for two people, ahead of the majority of their own constituents. This is going to be a pretty serious tax hike on the middle class, to say nothing of JCT came out this morning, with numbers for people making $10,000 to $30,000 a year. Their taxes are going to go up by 2021. So there's no mistake to be made about this, that people's taxes are going to go, average people's taxes, or middle class people and lesser people's taxes, are going to go up in the short term and long term on this horrible tax scam.
Yeah. And the only disagreement I have with you, and it's a very slight one, because maybe the party is just the donor class, but I think these are members who are putting the interests of a handful of billionaires ahead of their constituents. Maybe it's just true that the party is nothing but a handful of billionaires' interests now. I think there's a case to be made.
Let's clarify that. Let's really clarify that, because as you know, I've written a lot and spoken a lot about this, and let's just say it very directly. The Republican Party only functions, the modern Republican Party only functions for the betterment and the interests of its donors. There is nothing else on its mind. As you and I both know, Nancy Altman, who co-founded Social Security Works, wrote extensively on how the health care bill was really just a tax cut, and the tax cut is really just a way to attack health care.
Exactly.
It's only the donor class of the Republican Party only cares about tax cuts for itself, and the Republican Party consequently only cares about tax cuts because it's all its donors care about, and they only care about their donors, period.
Yep.
That's all there is to it.
I just say tax handouts, though, because that's truly what they are. It's just literally giving my money to some billionaire.
Handouts.
It's a total scam. So let's go how we're going to fight it in the next steps. Because the Senate is going to vote on a tax scam as well, but theirs is markedly different. It's in many respects markedly worse, but it is different than the House, and that's going to be important for the step after the Senate. But in the Senate, I think we do have a chance of defeating it just like we did Trump Care, because in fact, it is the same thing. As you noted, they only have one maneuver. They reach into the pockets of the middle class of working families, and they give that money to the billionaires on Wall Street. And that's what we're seeing again. So in the Senate, we need to find 3 Republicans who are going to vote no on this tax scam. And not totally shockingly, but somewhat shockingly, Senator Ron Johnson, who many people have said is the stupidest man in Congress, actually said he was going to vote against the tax scam yesterday. Now, he said a similar thing during Trump Care, and then he voted for it.
I wouldn't take this to the bank or the brokerage. Alex.
Yeah, exactly. But it does give us that opening, is what I think. Like, in this fight, there's now one. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, but we only need 3. And a bunch of them are going to want to be the second person against it. and not the third, because the third kills it. So
Right.
I think it's the same play. You tell me what you think, but we're going to go to Maine. We're going to go to Alaska. We're going to go to Nevada. We're going to go to Arizona. We're going to try to find Republicans who are willing to put the interests of their constituents and of the country ahead of the interests of a handful of billionaires.
Do you remember back to the good old days when the Republican Party pretended that it stood for not increasing the deficit and the national debt and, balancing the budget and stuff like that? Do you remember? Are you old enough to remember that?
I remember they
It's only
say
like last
that.
year.
I remember they say that, but I've never believed that they care about that. So, yes, I remember them talking about it, but it was always just as a way of cutting our earned benefits. But yes, I take
Right,
your
but when
point.
we're dealing with these kinds of numbers, like, the number 3, which is the number of Republican senators that we would need to vote against the ultimate tax bill, maybe that old sentiment might just influence one or two. I'm thinking of Bob Corker from Tennessee, who's not going to run again.
And he might just do it because he hates Trump, like there's a case to
And
be
he hates
made for
Trump,
that too.
right. And I think one or two of them, I guess what I'm trying to say is, besides the obvious more moderate Republicans who we were able to influence, in the healthcare fight, who still, this has now become a healthcare fight again. We haven't said yet that the individual mandate repeal is on the table in the Senate bill.
Yep.
And
tens of millions of people will lose their insurance. Premiums are going to go up.
13
It's
million
the same
people,
thing.
right, projected to lose their insurance again. This will influence, presumably, people like Susan Collins, who was influenced by it before, and Lisa Murkowski, and maybe John McCain, and then add into that mix somebody like Corker, who really is concerned about the $1.7 trillion that they're trying to add to the deficit here, and maybe a Jeff Flake or two, who knows. But 3 is not a massive number, and that probably does make, as you and I decided before for our strategy with healthcare, it does make our lift in the Senate probably a little bit easier than the path in the House. Although, having said that, I'm still extremely shocked and disappointed, actually, in blue state Republicans selling out their own constituents in the House. And that's why this afternoon I'm going to be going to Mimi Walters' office as part of an accountability event outside her office to hold her accountable for this terrible vote she took against the interests of her own constituents. Having said that, the Senate is where we're going to stop this.
And we've only got a couple minutes left. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go out. We're going to rally the people in these states with these senators, Republican senators, who might be willing to vote no. As you said, there's those who are willing to vote no because it's the right thing to do. And then there are some, it's for whatever reason. We're going to go and try to push all of them. And I think if the American people raise their voices the way we did on Trump Care, we will win again. The billionaires cannot stand against the people when we're united, which is why they're trying to do it as quickly as possible. But I want to do one more thing, just so that people get, if they get it out of the Senate, it's not done there either. Because it's different than the House bill, they have to do this thing called conference where they put the two together and they come out with a third bill that is a mishmash of the two bills. And then that has to go back to each House of Congress and be voted on again. And so we're going to fight it at every step of the way. We are never going to give up. We will never surrender. We will continue to fight this tax scam. And I think if what we learned in the Trump Care fight is we just have to get the information to the people of what they're trying to do here, and then the people stand up and say no.
They seem to have an inkling of what's going on. People seem to have caught on, as you mentioned earlier, At very best, this bill or whatever, some version of this bill, because it's been so sketchy up until now, seems to only appeal to 25% of the American people. So it looks like we've made some pretty good headway in people understanding that this is a scam and that they're being conned. So, as you said, very important to remember, and I'm reminding all the people at the Mimi Walters California 45 rally to hold Mimi Walters accountable for her vote this afternoon. We had a little call yesterday to advance this rally, and people did have to be reminded that, today's vote is not the end, the Senate vote is not the end, the conference committee vote is not the end. It's got to go back to both chambers. This is going to be a long process, and we are going to win in the end. We are going to fight it every step of the way until it's over, because, as you said, the people united can never be defeated, unquote.
Exactly. John Bowzer, Bauman, president of Social Security Works PAC, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to plug into the work that we're doing, John and I, and Social Security Works, you can go to socialsecurityworks.org. If you sign the petition there on the front page, you'll get informed of all of the work that we're doing. John, as always, thanks so much for joining us.
And then thank you and all of you out there. I'm clearing my throat because preparatory to saying goodbye, I just want to share with you that together we will bum 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 dang a dang dang a ding a dong ding. Stop the Trump tax scam.
Yes, we will. Thanks, John. Talk to you soon.
Hey, priest for peace.